Hi, this is Outside the Box, and standing by to join me is Kyle Lam. We're going to talk about the power of holistic sound healing. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Janine. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much for connecting with me. I attended two of your sound baths. Would you say they're both described as sound baths or holistic healing? Tell me how you would describe it.
Yeah, so the term sound bath, there's first of all, there's many different names when it comes to sound healing, sound baths, right? So I've already mentioned two: sound healing, sound baths. Some people call it sound meditation, right? In essence, it's a form of like vibrational therapy, right? Because you're being immersed in different sounds and frequencies, and at the core essence of it is just really a vibration, right? It's a part of holistic health in many ways too. So you could classify it as being a part of the holistic health industry too. But in terms of what people generally call it, I mean, there's so many different names behind it, but they all relate to kind of same thing, using sound, frequency, vibration as a form of medicinal and holistic health treatment.
How did you get involved in this field? I mean, what is your backstory?
Yeah, so I actually grew up as a musician. When I was in junior high and high school, I played piano for 10 years. I did mostly a lot of classical compositions and concerts back then too, but I also spent 6 years playing clarinet in marching band and symphony orchestra. So I did a lot of classical pieces, but also a lot of modern pieces too as well. So I've always had a love for creating music since I was young. And really, from my background, there is one of the big reasons why I'm really good at what I do now is because I have a lot of understanding about how musical theory correlates with our emotional and mental bodies. But when I was younger, I mean, I've been going to concerts since I was 14, and every single year. So I love music. I love live music. I love the emotions that arise from within from listening to music. And also being connected with a large group of people around you who are immersed in that same music too as well.
Mhm.
There's something really special when all of our hearts, all of our voices are connected in unison. There's a sense of not only community, of course, right, but there's this power that just comes into as well because we're all directing our energies in the same way, right?
Right.
And what's funny is when I stopped playing music, because I really, at the time when I was younger, I was only playing music really to get into college. I didn't
Mhm.
realize how much of the impact it had on me. Like many children when I was younger, I almost comically didn't like playing music because I felt like it was forced
Forced
on
on
my
you,
parents,
yes.
right? But looking back on it, I'm very grateful for my mother for putting me in music too, well, because my appreciation for it not only shows in my love of going to like concerts and music festivals, but now in sound healing, it's given me the knowledge to be able to produce like a musically meditative
Yeah.
experience. I do a lot of Kundalini Yoga. So for people who don't know about Kundalini Yoga, the gong is very synonymous with Kundalini Yoga. So after every class, there's usually like about a 10-minute gong session. So a lot of my spiritual practice stems from Kundalini Yoga. So as my own spiritual evolution grew, my evolution of my love towards the gong also grew too as well. And essentially, I started to go to a lot of sound baths, primarily like in the Los Angeles area. When I first started exploring more spirituality too as well, and I ended up befriending two really notable sound healers in the LA area. I was invited to be part of the team to help out, and then one thing led to another, and I eventually got my own instruments. What's funny is when I got my own instruments, I really didn't have any intention on doing sound baths. I really just got it for my own self
Okay.
because I loved it. I was like, now there's new instruments that I can learn how to play again, right?
Yes.
And then fast forward, I think it was 2016. I did my very first sound bath in LA just for fun. And then from there, just kind of grew. And
Wow.
here I am today.
Tell me, okay, let me back up the instrument. What exactly was it?
Do you mean the instrument that I got, that
Yes,
I
the
purchased on
instrument
my
you
own?
first got.
Yeah. So the very first instrument that I got was a gong. It was a Jupiter planetary feisty gong. And the reason why I got it is because I'm a Sagittarius. My astrological sign is Sagittarius, and Sagittarius' ruling planet is Jupiter. And one of the teachers that I befriended, she used to do these astrology sound baths at Wanderlust in Hollywood. And so she did a couple readings for me. And when I inquired about, okay, what would be a good first instrument to get, she said, you have to get a Jupiter gong. And then she said, well, I don't want you to be biased. You should still listen and see which one resonates with. And even when I was listening to these audio clips of different planetary gongs too, I also try not to be biased. But the truth is, the Jupiter gong really spoke out to me and really connected me to my heart. So I purchased that. I ended up playing at my home. I would play for like almost an hour a day.
Wait, what about neighbors?
So the gong is a very soothing instrument. Okay. Well, okay. It's okay. It has the potential to be a very soothing instrument. Of course, like any other musical instrument, it has the ability to disrupt, right? And be a little bit chaotic too, which is why playing these instruments in a very disciplined manner is very important too. But at the essence, these planetary gongs are manufactured to be very healing. So even when there is an intensity behind loud playing, it's still very soothing too as well. So, and I wasn't like banging on the gongs very hard for like hours on it and the hours of the night. Usually, in the end of the day before I go to bed too as well.
Nice.
So it always played very softly too. After that, I purchased one single crystal bowl, maybe like 10 inches or so. And again, I would just kind of play it on my own for a little bit and really connect with the sound. And then from there, I decided to get like a very basic set of 7, which you've seen at most people's sound baths as well. Now I have 10 gongs, 10 gongs, and 24 crystal bowls amongst other
24.
Yeah.
Wow. And they're beautiful. They're white. A lot of them are white.
Yeah, so crystal bowls are primarily made out of crystal quartz. They're 99.99% quartz. I'm sure you've seen some of the more like colorful ones that have different like gemstones or different other kind of crystals in it too as well too. But most of them are made out of crystal quartz.
Okay. Where do you get them? Would you get them in LA?
So, back in the day, like maybe like 10 years ago, they were not the most easiest to find. You can only probably get them at like retail stores, or if you go online, certain like cities had them, like Sedona was very popular, right? But I think now these days, because sound healing is very trendy, you can get them on Amazon so easily, right? Now, there's a conversation about whether the quality that you buy on Amazon is the same as the quality you would buy from, people who are really peculiar about how they craft these crystal bowls too. But relatively, they're really easy to get, whether it's an online retail, in-store retail, or you go direct from the manufacturer too as well. Even gongs, there's a company called Gongs Unlimited, and they're probably one of the best US distributors of gongs from all around the world too as well. And they've been doing it for a very, very long time. Their name is a staple in the sound healing community too. So, now it's relatively easy to get. So if anyone's interested in, picking up a pair of instruments, playing it at home, trying it out, it's really easy. And it's also very affordable too as well. Again, it goes back to the quality thing, but if you just want to kind of start out and play and not have to almost put that on like a down payment on a house, right? It's very easy to kind of get and just explore with it.
So let's talk about the experience for someone who's not familiar with a sound bath, of what it's like. Because I remember the first time I did one, it was in, I think it was January, and I wasn't sure what to expect. I had taken yoga classes, but it's a very transformative experience for a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, first of all, the sound bath experience has a pretty big spectrum, right? On the one end, it can be just a very simple rest and relaxation, right? For a lot of people who may have been familiar with yoga, right, you could call it like an extended shavasana, right, where you're just
Mm-hmm.
kind of lying down, letting everything integrate too. On the other end of the spectrum, it has the potential to really induce a lot of deep emotional healing. And for a lot of people who may have done like plant medicine ceremonies, for example, or really intense breathwork classes, for example, the intensity behind it is also very the same too. So, every sound healer, every sound practitioner has their own unique energy, their own unique style, and that correlates with what that particular experience is, right? But no matter what kind of experience you have, at the core of what a sound bath is a musically guided meditation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so many of us, we already kind of know what that feels like. We already have a love for music, right? We have those specific artists, genres, tracks that we really enjoy listening to. And the reason why we enjoy them is because the music, the tracks, the lyrics, the songs, they really speak to our hearts.
Yeah.
They allow us to develop a deeper connection to ourselves and gives us a greater understanding of not only what we're going through internally, but it helps us to kind of make sense of the world around us, right? And so what we're doing in sound baths is we're really just breaking that down, and we're working with the elements and foundations of music, notes, harmonics, frequency, and vibration. So, like in songs, when you listen to a love song, for example, right, you have these emotions pouring from your heart, right? And whether you've had an experience that you can relate to that too, or you haven't, and you might be exploring what that feels like, that same kind of experimentation, exploration can be found in the sound bath experience too as well.
Yeah.
The main difference between a sound bath and listening to music, for example, is there's actually the physical vibration involved, right? You're at around live instruments. You're not just hearing a pre-recorded or reproduced track through your headphones. You're experiencing the music and the vibration live in person. And the second thing is too, with a lot of songs and especially with lyrics, especially, there's a certain direction that it's kind of heading, like you're heading in, right? But in sound bath, because there's no words involved, right? Music is that universal language. It allows you to explore on your own, right? In any direction that you want to go in, depending on what you're going through in that moment.
It's for me, the first time I did it, it felt like a dream. Like I was uncovering a lot of things from my past, some trauma. This happened to me in yoga too. And then, because then, at first the noises were loud, and then I heard somebody snoring. But there was, I'm sure that's very common. And
Mm-hmm.
and then as it kind of broke through all this subconscious stuff, I was so soothed. It felt good. It was like a emotional release.
Mm-hmm.
And I walked out of there like, wow, that just felt like I took a yoga class.
Yeah. We're only aware of so much that goes on within us, right? Even let's say you take a walk down the street, you don't realize every little bit that your body is doing, right? So there's so much that resides in our subconscious. So when we go to a sound bath, when we go in that deep meditation, we're really exploring the inner depths of our subconscious too. And, many parts of ourselves are really pleasant. They're very nice. They're very soothing. They're very harmonious. But there's the flip side, of course, where we have to kind of balance that out. There's that dark, that shadow, the parts of us that we may not be so willing to face. And so when we go into the sound bath experience, one is the music kind of helps guide us into certain parts of us too, right? And when we face certain parts that feel really good, we really feel connected to it, right? That's that kind of like good feeling, like I feel like I'm being reconnected to the inner essence of myself. Mm-hmm. But then there's the parts of us that are like, ooh, this is a little bit heavy and sticky and not so pleasant. But for anyone that has experience with doing inner work, really the most important thing is to embrace that part of yourself, because the reason why it holds us back is because we refuse to address it. We refuse to embrace it, right? And in many ways, even though we may not like it, it is a part of us. So the sooner that we can embrace that aspect of us, the sooner that we can take the steps to either alleviate ourselves from that part of us, right? Or begin taking the steps to help kind of remove that too. So because the sound bath has that vibrational aspect to it, right? Vibration is very, very soothing in many ways, right? In some ways, I call sound baths kind of like a sonic massage, right?
Yeah.
We're using the vibration to kind of become aware of any emotional tension that we may have in our body, and just letting the vibration kind of gently soothe it out and like almost like take the emotional knots out, so to speak, too.
Yeah.
So many times after sound bath, we feel really good, but we don't know really why we feel good, right? We may not understand what it is that we actually went through, what it is that we let go of too, but we know something worked, right? And that's just clearing of our subconscious.
Yeah. And some of it too is being willing and open to experience that. Being willing to let yourself go and experience the sound bath fully, being present.
Yeah, it does take courage and confidence, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it requires you to really take a deeper look at yourself, right? And like I said, it's taking a look at the parts of you that you may not be so aware of, right? That you may either have consciously or subconsciously suppressed and refused. But in the end, they're a part of you. And I always tell people, when you go to a sound bath, when you go on this inward journey, if you can have the courage to embrace every aspect of yourself, because in the end, everything that you feel is a part of you, right? One is once you come out of the meditation, you have a better understanding of who you are and what's going on inside of you, right? And therefore you can take whatever steps you may need to either grow that part that you want to grow or alleviate yourself from the parts that you don't want, right? But two is that you're much more confident in yourself.
Yes.
Because you know who you are. You're not surprised when some kind of emotional reaction comes on. You're like, I recognize this as part of myself. And then you have more control of your emotional reactions, which is kind of the big thing about what we do in meditation, right? It's to really control our reaction and be able to control what our internal relationship is with our external environment.
Yeah. Plus, I found that in tagging off what you're just saying, having gone through the experience twice, when I came out of there, I felt like I was a little kinder to myself, and I was more conscious of what are my triggers that upset me? What are the people that upset me? How can I just be better to myself through that experience?
Yeah, it doesn't matter whether you go to a sound bath or any kind of meditation. The whole idea is to help slow down your brainwave to this theta state, right? And there's been studies that show that when you are in an extended theta state, usually for at least a 30, 40-minute period of time, you can really observe who you are from a third party view, right? And it could be sound bath, it could be silent meditation, it could be breath work, it could just be a very Vipassana, right? But the whole idea is if we can observe ourselves more from a third party, right? One is we're not biased of ourselves because it's very easy for us to kind of like, no, I don't want to face this part of me too, as well, right? Or I like this part better than me, so I'm going to focus more on this. But it's less bias involved too. But second is that we can really understand exactly the intricacies of what's going on within us too, because that's really most important, right? The smaller, minute details that we may not be as aware of, or to catch on as quickly as the larger parts of us.
And the other thing I want to add is how many times in our day do we actually have an hour or an hour and a half to just sit or lie down with our eyes closed and listen, where we don't have to talk to anybody? I mean, talking is exhausting,
we live in a very fast-paced environment, especially, those of us who live near, big cities or big urban areas too, as well. We're bombarded with stimulation, distraction, not just visual, but also you listen to the radio.
Like noise pollution.
Exactly, right? Freeway, cars, different noises from our electronic devices, right? And then you pair that with our own internal voice that we may have with ourselves. there's this constant barrage to it as well, which is why, this concept of like sitting in silence, sitting in stillness is very crucial, that I would say now, to kind of help balance it out. Because even just a simple 10, 20, 30-minute period of silence can do wonders, right? A lot of people think that, we have to like sit in like an hour or two meditation every day to really get the full benefits of it. Now, it is true that if we do have the luxury of being able to sit in silence for an hour or two, right, there's a lot of benefits to it as well. But for most people, just 10 to 20 minutes a day is sufficient enough to kind of keep them at a really balanced level where they can just become more aware as things come up too. But really, more important than the time that you spend is how consistent you are, right?
Yes.
Because mindfulness, meditation, awareness, even peace, right, is a practice. It's about consistency. I always tell people, well, peace is not an experience that you achieve. Peace is a consistent practice that you have within you.
Yes.
That's part of your daily routine.
Yes. So I finished the class last Saturday. I loved it. And I watched the reaction of people who had attended. I don't know if some were new people coming up to you, but it seemed like there were a lot of people that were emotional, that a lot of things come up and they just want to talk and share because it's such an emotional experience. You must be hearing so many stories from people.
Yeah. It's a big blessing. Because of the work that I do, I have a greater understanding of what the community goes through. And I'm very fortunate that I have people from different generations, different ethnic backgrounds, different cultures that come to my events too. So it gives me a good understanding of what the general population goes through. And what I've learned is that most people don't have any form of education on emotional awareness, right? They're either taught they're taught to deal with what they go through emotionally from their parents or from television or movies, right? They associate that's what the normal thing is to do. So, but the thing is, emotional awareness is not linear, right? It's unique to however you will process it best too as well.
Yes.
So when people come to these sound baths, especially when they're new, it's almost like, wow, this like discovery, like, oh my God, there's this new way that I can deal with things internally that I would normally have either pushed away or just been stuck and not know what to do, right? And we go through a lot every single day, right? Not just in this current day and age, but we evolve almost every single week. I mean, the world changes literally every single week, right? And so there's so much changes happening in our external environment too. There's no doubt so many changes that happen in our internal environment too. So it's important to kind of have this practice, whether you go to sound bath or not, or something else, to have a sacred space for you to go through whatever you go through internally to match your external world too.
Yes.
And, there are some people who come to sound baths and they have a very emotional experience, right? They're purging, they're pouring out, they're expressing, they're giving themselves the chance to express who they are for the first time, right? And, and then there are people, who have just a lot of deep layers of traumatic experiences from the past before too, and they're going through that inner healing, right? And then there's some people who just deal with everyday stress, like, oh my God, traffic was terrible, or oh my God, that coworker was just like really annoying, right? And they're just kind of working through those too. So kind of what I talked about before, like the spectrum of what you can achieve too, we don't just have one little block of emotions, we have a wide spectrum too as well. So there's the ability to really do work on any part of that spectrum within you.
Yes. Well, and I felt like, just like my yoga practice, that this gives me another tool to handle the ups and downs of life, the stresses, and not be so quick to react with anger or emotion, just be more chill with whatever comes my way, because I see how people react to things that are so minuscule. They react in fear or anger or judginess. And it just gave me a perspective shift.
Yeah. And, for most people, it's not that those little things tick them off. It's that they have this pile up, right? And it gets to the point where like the littlest thing just ticks them off too as well.
Yes.
And so when we don't address it, it just keeps stacking up and up, right?
Exactly.
We have this joke and the emotional work, like, okay, your problems don't just go away with like a fairy wand, right? You have to address it, because if you don't, it doesn't just go away. It's going to keep piling up and up and up and up to the point where you just can't contain it anymore.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of people that, get aggravated by the smallest things, it's because they're just at that breaking point too.
Exactly. Yeah. So where can people find out more about you and your schedule?
Yeah, so you can find through my website. It's www.kylelamsoundhealing.com. My Instagram handle is the same thing, Kyle Lam Sound Healing. And both of those sites have my entire schedule, more information about my work, different kind of programs that I teach too as well. And some just, cool pictures and videos about the sound bath experience if you want a little preview about what to expect. On my Instagram, there's also some Instagram live videos that I have. So if you ever want to just give yourself that quick little reset or have a short little meditative sound bath before bed, those are available to the community too as well.
I didn't see that. I'm going to have to check that out.
Yeah, they're great.
Fantastic. I want to thank you so much. And this has been great. I feel like it's also very timely because of the amount of turmoil in our world as far as mental health and well-being, especially, it's really all ages, but especially Gen Z. I'm hearing every day how they're struggling. And so it's just another tool for people to have. Yeah.
And, sound baths are just one of so many different modalities out there. It's definitely one of the easiest because all you have to do is just lay down and be open, right? But for me, for example, it helped me to open up to exploring other modalities and other potentials of what I could do to better myself too as well. So whether you go to a sound bath, yoga, meditation too, I would just advise your listeners not to limit yourself too. Use that as a way to see what other pathways that you can go on to for self-exploration and for self-healing.
I do want to mention, I think I was on your Instagram page and I think I saw you working with a young student.
Yes. So I do teach, I train people in sound baths, not only to develop a sound bath practice at home, but to also eventually offer sound baths for the community as a sound healer. But I also work with a lot of children too. So first of all, my sound baths are family friendly, right? I invite parents to bring their children because I think it's very important to introduce this stuff to kids at a very young age, keeping in mind that they will be able to benefit from it, right? Of course, there's some kids who are just running around everywhere and we wouldn't want them in the sound bath, right? But I've had children as young as 7 sit in meditation with their parents, and it's very beautiful. And nice. I also do private lessons for kids who want to learn about the instruments, right? Because they have a deeper connection to it as well. So whether you take your child to a sound bath, whether you give them private lessons for sound bath too, the whole idea is it's important to kind of introduce children, not just children, but teens too as well, right? The younger generation, to anything that will allow them to build that foundation of mindfulness, that foundation of emotional awareness. And most importantly, right, self-compassion, to love yourself, because, we're living in the age of comparison right now, right? It's very easy to
social media
people. Exactly. Right?
Yeah.
And I see I have a lot of, teenagers who come to my sound bath too. And, they express that's the hardest thing they struggle with is not comparing themselves. Yeah.
Wow. So that's beautiful that you're doing work with them, because in my work, I'm hearing how they're struggling as well, feeling isolated and anxious and depressed and on and on and on.
Yeah, I mean, look, I have, most of the people who come to my sound baths are middle-aged adults.
Mm-hmm.
And even for them, a lot, I mean, about almost a good 30 or 40% of people who come to my sound baths are new. So if you
Mm-hmm.
think about it, even Gen Z's parents right now are discovering this, right?
Right.
So it's a trickle down effect too.
Yes.
As more and more parents are doing their own inner work too, eventually it will get passed on to their children. And so the hopes is eventually this is so, widespread that it will be part of like a family routine.
I would hope so. It's beautiful.
Mhm.
I want to
Mhm.
thank you so much. This has been fantastic.
Thank you, Janine. It was a pleasure and an honor to be able to share my story and share our work with your listeners.